Welcome to my first greenhouse chat of 2026. Come on inside. Hi you guys, this is Nicole from My Carolina Garden. My garden is located in growing zone 8B and I am in southeastern North Carolina. Greenhouse chats are all about gardening topics that gardeners want to talk about. These are things that are important to us, and if you are a gardener, I am sure these conversations are going to be right up your alley. Our very first topic for our Greenhouse Chat 2026 is budget gardening. Now don't go away because we talked about money and talked about having a budget. There is no way I am the only one having heart palpitations when I'm at the grocery store. Oh my gosh, the cost of living right now is just so out of this world that it's like, where can we save a buck? How do we even have a budget at this point? So in 2026, I think saving money in the garden is probably more important than it's ever been. So let's jump into my top 7 ways to save money in the garden. My first 3 things on this list are all going to be about the way we spend money, but then the last ones are all going to be more about a little bit of elbow grease to save our budget. Number 1, when you're looking at perennials to buy, very strongly consider buying smaller perennials. So for example, if you see coneflowers that come in 3-gallon pots or 1-gallon pots, I would very strongly think about going to the 1-gallon pots. And the reason I would do that is because perennials like coneflowers, for example, get bigger, big enough that you can divide in the future. So yes, you're not going to get the biggest plant right now, but if saving money is kind of the biggest thing on your mind, then very strongly consider buying the smaller plants. Also, when you're buying the perennials, think about buying perennials that have a long bloom time, something like Coreopsis, for example. So you're not always worried about filling in these spaces, blank areas in the garden during the season, but instead you're going to have these long bloomers that are just sitting there pretty for a long period of time. A couple other examples of long bloomers would be salvia, gaillardia, or blanket flowers, things like that. Again, something that's going to fill your garden with color for a long period of time, so it's going to make you not itch to buy more. Number 2 piggybacks off of number 1. This is where we'd like to avoid buying those impulse annuals. You know what it's like when we think, oh, I need to add this pop of color right now because I don't have anything in my garden that's giving me that color or giving me something in this spot, etc. Here's the thing, we all understand annuals don't last forever, and their bloom time, well, it varies, but let's even say it's like 3 months, maybe depending on what it is, maybe it's 5 months. Let's try to avoid doing that. Instead, let's spend our money on something that's going to last. Let's think about shrubs. Let's think about structural plants. Let's think about evergreens, things that are going to give us more bang for our buck over time, because these things are going to last. They're going to give us different seasonal interests. Like if you have an evergreen, you might not care about it that much when you're thinking about spring and summertime, but heck yeah, you care about it in the winter because it's one of the only things that maybe gives you red berries or having green foliage in your garden instead of all brown. So let's see if we can stay away from the impulse annual buying and instead invest in one of these types of plants. The next one we talk about all the time here, number 3, is to buy as many plants on sale or on clearance as possible. Now, I know everyone's thinking, oh, sure, well, I try to do that. It isn't always possible. Sometimes you go to the clearance rack, there's nothing. Sometimes you go and it's bursting. So I do understand that that comes on a very specific timeline that you can't control. However, if you know you have a certain dollar amount inside your budget, tuck it away, put a little paper clip on it that lets you know when there is a sale on such and such a thing. Maybe it's these shrubs we were talking about, maybe it's these long blooming perennials we were talking about. You can go crazy and you can buy so much more. The clearance rack, I get that. Like I said, it's hit or miss 100% for sure. But if you can get something off of that rack that isn't going to cause you more detriment trying to get it to live, that could be a great investment. And speaking of buying plants that are on sale, look for other plant sales in your local area from places that like are organizations that are just looking to sell some plants to make a little extra cash flow or something like that. You might be able to get some great plants like pint size for $1, let's say. And we're talking about things like sweet potato vine, for example, which could be a beautiful draper in your pot arrangement for the entire year. So look for plant sales from community colleges, even sometimes high schools, like a sports team, something like that. They may be selling plants for very cheap, cash maybe, something like that. Look for it because you won't regret it. All right, so our first numbers 1, 2, and 3 were all about how we buy, the actual dollars that we're spending. Number 4, we're jumping into something that requires a little bit more legwork. It requires a little more elbow grease and energy on our parts. It may be obvious, but it's dividing up our own perennials. Now, we can talk about flowering things like the coneflowers we mentioned before, or we can talk about things that are more staple plants like hostas, for an example. Things like this can be divided up like every couple of years. And I don't know about you, I don't even have a lot of shade in my garden, but my hostas seem like they are taking some sort of major drugs because they are getting so big so quickly that I am always dividing up my hostas, I feel like. Now, I typically divide my plants in the early springtime. So for hostas, for example, I like to divide them up when I start to see the little nubs come out of the ground, not when they've already leafed out. Once I see those nubs and I start to go, oh, okay, that's right, this guy's going to be big. I remember that from last year. That's a great time for me to dig up the entire root ball and basically treat it like a pie. Divide it up into 4, and now I'm going to have 4 beautiful leafed out hostas as soon as they are ready to come out. I also divide up a lot of other things. A lot. Black-eyed Susans would be a self-seeding plant that I have in abundance that I dig up and give away because I have so many black-eyed Susans. You know them, the yellow cone flowers with the dark middle. I have so many. I just have more than I can use in my personal garden. Blanket flowers are something else that I also give to other people. Now, blanket flowers and even the black-eyed Susans bring me to a kind of a different point. Still talking about dividing up perennials or perennials that multiply, but it might be in a different way. My blanket flowers, for example, are amazing self-seeders, like crazy self-seeders, that I end up with so many plants starting all over the place because the seeds blow wherever they want and start a brand new plant, that I end up digging them up to give away. So if you have a great self-seeding plant in your yard, another one is Dragon's Breath Celosia, which generally is an annual, but it's beautiful red, kind of looks like it's on fire in the summer. That guy is such an amazing self-seeder. Even though it's an annual in my area, I get little beautiful red magenta seedlings that pop up all over the place because I've had this Dragon's Breath in my yard before. So you might want to consider not only buying perennials or having perennials that you can divide up and share the wealth around your property, but also investing in those self-seeding plants. That same deal gives you a lot more plants that you can put around your property. And number 5 piggybacks off of number 4. It's plant sharing. Plant sharing in any way you can. If you produce something on your property in plenty, why not trade with other people? See what they grow in plenty. And sharing that means sharing wealth, and there's no expense whatsoever. It would be awesome if you can share with neighbors because you already know their growing conditions are exactly the same as yours. Their soil's the same unless someone severely amended their soil. But largely their growing environment will be identical to yours, barring any huge trees and, shade, that type of thing. However, I do understand that it's easier said than done to garden share with neighbors because not all your neighbors are going to be gardeners like you are. So how do you find local people who are willing to garden share? First of all, start with word of mouth and tell your friends because All of us gardeners seem to be the same. We all want more plants. And if we can get them for free or just through a trade, boom, that is such a bonus. But another place would be Facebook Marketplace. You can actually locate other people in your area that are looking to give away plants. Maybe they're going to sell them for cheap, or maybe they're looking for a plant trade as well. Why not? It makes perfect sense to get the word out publicly that you want to get rid of these plants or that you have these plants in abundance. So look for any plant sharing opportunities. Number 6 is propagate. Now, propagate does not have to be a big, scary word. All it means is being able to make babies from a parent plant in one way, shape, or form. So we can be very simplistic about the way we propagate and yet come out amazingly ahead of the game. This is a great example right here. I have this coleus plant here. I have other things around me that I have propagated. There's begonias that are sitting a little further back, etc. I propagate absolutely anything I can. Now, that doesn't mean I'm a wizard. It doesn't mean I'm amazing or I can do better things than you. No way at all. I just like to take things down to their simplest form and try it. Very frequently, what I like to do is take stem cuttings of plants. Coleus and begonias are two awesome examples of times that I've done this. Cut the stems, and I like to root the stems in water so that I can see when the roots are beginning to emerge. It is simple. That's why I recommend it. You can look back at some of my other videos about things that I've propagated. I made a shade garden this year, and I have a special section of the shade garden that I call Coleus Alley. And the reason why I call it Coleus Alley is because I filled it with coleus. Well, guess what? I only started with a couple of little trays of coleus. That's it. And I ended up letting them grow a little bit, cutting stems and rooting them. Grow a little bit, cutting stems, rooting it. Just kept doing that until I had an abundance, a whole shade garden full of coleus. Now, you could do the same thing, like I said, with begonias. I have done the same thing with snake plants. A lot of times when you propagate your favorite plants in this way, the plants that are super easy to do it with, you end up with an abundance. Now, maybe that gives you another opportunity to share plants with other people, or heck, maybe you even have your own little plant sale of some kind. But propagating plants, look into it. See if there's something that you really love. See if there's a way to propagate it. It doesn't hurt to give it a try. Number 7, and my final example of a way that you can save money in the garden, it's overwintering. Now, overwintering doesn't just have to mean having a greenhouse like this and filling it with your beautiful plants from outside. Overwintering can mean a lot of things. In some cases, it can mean digging up bulbs from a plant. Let's think of caladiums, for example. Caladiums are a gorgeous foliage plant that really just like to live in the tropical weather. I don't even have tropical weather for caladiums. I'm borderline. Some people have had success. But instead, you can take the caladium bulbs and let them live inside your house, even in a garage or something like that, until you're ready to plant those bulbs back out into the garden in the next warm weather cycle. We may have a spot inside of our house with grow lights, or maybe we just have a bright window where we can put things. I have often told you that I have a garden tub, which is basically just an oversized bathtub in my master bathroom that we don't ever use. So my plants use it. My husband has gotten used to this idea now though, so it has been okay. But I literally have my bathtub and its ledge full of plants because I have a huge window there and they love the light. So I don't expect everyone to have a greenhouse, so that's not what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to say let's take indoors or protect any plant we possibly can, even if it does just mean the bulbs or the roots. Canna lilies, for me, are perennials, but some people also have to dig up those rhizome roots, for example, bring those indoors, etc. Overwintering can also mean you do extra protection on your plants, but keep them in the ground or outdoors. This could mean using a frost cloth, like, that semi-translucent white lightweight cloth that you see people drape over their garden beds or tie around their big plants or things like that. Frost cloth would be one way of overwintering outdoors to give your plants extra protection. Mulching, very good layers of mulch over the roots of sensitive plants is another way you can overwinter. Some people just call that over mulching. So you're protecting the root system in that case. So we can do multiple things to overwinter our plants. So if we are zone pushing, let's say, something that you aren't quite sure if it's meant to be in your zone and thrive, you can do some extra protection on that baby to make sure it does thrive for you. This way, you are not going out continually and spending that money year after year after year on the same plants that you know you love. For me, this plant right here is a great example of something that I would spend a fortune on if I didn't overwinter these indoors. This is Diplodenia slash Mandevilla. They're like plant cousins. But I have taken this Mandevilla indoors now, both inside my house as well as inside the greenhouse. I overwinter them indoors so that I could put them back out into my landscape again. Now, it's true that sometimes you may have to give your plants that are indoors a pep talk in the winter and say, it's okay, babies, we're going to get back outside like as soon as we possibly can. Because you may notice a little bit of leaf drop, or maybe they're not performing as great as they did outside, but it's okay. Let them go into a little bit of a rest period, let them have a little bit of dormancy, and then, like I said, you'll get to be able to put them back out into your landscape again, and you don't have to rebuy those plants. Oh, and here's just a little tip for you. Let's say you have as much coleus as I had in my coleus alley. You may not have room to save all your coleus, but what you could do is take clippings of your favorite coleus, root those in water or soil, and have small little pots or little jars of cuttings inside your house. And you should hopefully have room for at least those. So that is it. My 7 top tips for budgeting in the garden. Let's save some money this year, but let's have absolutely outstanding gardens. And if you have other ways that are your favorite to save money in the garden, let me know. Let me share those ideas with other people as well, because that is why we're here as the garden community, to share these things, these thoughts, ideas, and what works awesome for us. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please also drop in the comments any ideas that you have for future greenhouse chats, because last year it was super wonderful to connect with so many people in the gardening community. I got ideas, I shared ideas. It was just inspirational in this time of the year, because we might have the winter blues since we don't have our hands in the dirt necessarily right now. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on social media, because I post things there much more real time than I get to do on YouTube. And until next time, you guys, happy planting.